So what's that old saying about failure? Going about things the same way, yet expecting a different result. Not that Mazda has been failing at anything, they just seem to be going about things in a different manner. So does that mean you and I should expect a different result? Okay, so when I say Mazda is going about things differently, what exactly do I mean by that? Well, they are completely changing the approach in which they engineer cars. Exhibit A, CX-90. Now, it replaces the CX-9, but the CX-9 was a front-wheel drive based all-wheel drive crossover. This is a rear-wheel drive based all-wheel drive crossover that is significantly longer. Now, when I say longer, I don't mean by an inch or two. This is longer by over 7 inches. But why is that important? The space between the wheels, which you and I have always talked about, the wheelbase, this is where you package people and dogs, the business of a vehicle like this. It is now as long as a Mercedes-Benz S-Class. Now, far more important than that is what propels the vehicle. There are 2 different propulsion systems on offer. There is a plug-in hybrid with a 4-cylinder engine. We will talk about that in a completely separate episode. Then there is this, which is, I would argue, groundbreaking different approach for Mazda. This is their first inline 6-cylinder engine. It's a 3.3 turbo, but most importantly, this is a hybrid. Not like a Prius where it's a parallel hybrid. This is a mild hybrid where it has torque fill, so it does not have an EV-only mode. And now we have to press on to something, full disclosure, I did not at all expect, and that is 2 different flavors of the 3.3 inline turbo 6. There's this one, which is full fat. That's 340 horsepower. Of course, in the Mazda parlance, you got to put in the premium fuel to get that output. And then, believe it or not, there's like a standard output, the basic one, which is a measly 280 horsepower. Now, aside from performance figures, why is this important in a vehicle that, frankly, no one buys for performance? Well, the other business end of this vehicle is towing. In that 280 horsepower version, that's 3,500 pounds of towing. In this one, 5,000 pounds of towing. Welcome to stunning Woodacre, California. Now that we have the pleasantries out of the way, 4,899 pounds, or depending on express your weights and measures, 2,222 kilograms. With that, 2 important points of order. Number 1, if this was the most basic turbo, it would be 190 pounds less. If it were the plug-in, it would be 394 pounds more. With that, sport mode. Oh yes. Inline 6. What a significant difference. It is noticeable as soon as you get behind the wheel. This feels like it's cut from a completely different cloth in the way it delivers power. Now, what do I mean when I say that? You feel an instant delivery of torque. You don't feel like the engine has to spool up to get you the torque that you need. Is this like an AMG GLE 63S? Not at all. It's not trying to be. What's also instantly noticeable is the difference in the transmission. Do you feel hard shifts like you would in like a Nissan GTR? No, you feel more sure-footed shifts, but the speed is noticeable, and that's probably what's contributing to the delivery of power and the acceleration in a very heavy, large vehicle. Now, why is that important? Because most cars like this make do with a torque converter automatic. Now, that's important because it's designed to deliver smooth shifts and efficiency. Here they've gone with a wet clutch, which, yeah, can deliver the efficiency, but the idea is to add more driving dynamics, add a better way of delivering power, which clearly they've arrived at. And now a detour to things that I love. Visits to San Francisco on an incredibly rare sunshiny day, including a run in Crissy Fields all the way up to the bridge and back. Now, things that I don't love. Getting in the back seat of crossovers. Now, here, a bit of a surprise. You see, this is where I would sit as a 6-footer, and there's enough room for me back here. In other words, it's not a torture chamber. It's not an Escalade or a Tahoe, but it works because this is where that extra length in the wheelbase pays dividends. Now, the one you are looking at, this is the fancy one. So it's got the captain's chairs, the console, and heated and cooled seats in the back. This can be fitted in lesser models with the bench seat. And then notice it's way more airy on the inside. Because Coleman finally listened to us. We finally have a panoramic sunroof in a Mazda. He quit his engineering bitching. Now, speaking of bitching, this is the part I am not looking forward to. Ugh. Now, some of you may not believe this, but my 8-mile run this morning up to the bridge and back was far more pleasant than getting back here. You see, that is for two reasons. Number one, there is nowhere to store my feet. And number two, this third row, it is for children. And not because of the width. There's plenty of width there for adults. It's where the hip point is, meaning where your ass is planted on the seat. See, it's too low here and you feel like you're sitting on the floor. That aside, 2 USB ports in the back, and then storage. Back there, it's about 15 cubic feet. If I were to fold this, 40 cubic feet. Fold all of this, about 74 cubic feet. Then there's one other detail we have to focus on in the interior. And that would be an odd UX characteristic. Now, in the tech review, you and I discussed the design of the vehicle inside and out, and how Mazda has carried a lot of the good qualities of UX to this vehicle and made it a little bit more straightforward. Here, they've added something that's both good and strange. There are toggle switches for the temperature and the HVAC. Sounds great. You would think, I want to bring the temperature up, I would go this way, meaning put it up. Or if I want to go down, I would go this way. Sadly, it only goes down. So if I want to put the temperature up, I have to press down on the 2-part toggle switch. This is something that needs to be addressed. And then speaking about something that needs to be addressed, I kind of sandbagged you back there. Not everyone has to get into that third row by climbing over the console. Yes, there is a way to get in from the side of the vehicle. Okay, so put aside everything we just discussed about this delivering power. The massive difference here is the driving dynamics, is the ride quality. Mazda has made a huge stink that they've gone to this new rear drive architecture, which we know is a big deal as car guys. But the kind of people that are going to buy this, they really don't care about architecture, they care about ride quality. And here, this is spot on to the target they are trying to hit. They are trying to make this drive as good, or in a somewhat different personality, but same type of driving dynamics as a Mercedes GLE, a BMW X5, perhaps even a BMW X7. And here they have hit the target on the head so completely. This is a long vehicle. We talked about the wheelbase being that of an S-Class, and it doesn't feel like it's as long as an S-Class. That's why the driving dynamics are important here. And what's so fascinating about all of this, they do this without a very complicated like air ride or active roll stabilization that the Germans use. This is all accomplished through tuning from the likes of Coleman and his compatriots over in Japan. It's fascinating because, again, this is a long, heavy, large vehicle. You would expect a lot of sway from side to side, almost some waft as you're going down the road. In this application, there is none of that. It is total composure, but not at the expense of ride quality. Yeah, it feels a bit more stiff. It feels like a Mercedes was a couple of years ago, before they made this whole switch to the EQ and made their cars drive like a Lexus. This is now taking up that spot in terms of driving dynamics and ride quality. Now, of course, I can't let Coleman off that easy. I do have to complain about something. If it were me, I would want a bit more weight to the steering. Not that the steering is bad, not that it's not direct, it's actually tuned beautifully. What's missing here is a bit more weight to match the overall excellent dynamics that are on display in this vehicle. Yes, it is indeed that time again to play your favorite game on the options game with today's contestant, a very different kind of Mazda. This, the rear-wheel drive based Mazda CX-90 for a base price of, I can't believe it. They actually listened to us in the wish list of the tech review when we said we want the base price less than 40 grand. Now granted, it's not a hell of a lot less than 40 grand, but that first number is a 3, $39,595. Now that is for the basic 280 horsepower version. The plug-in is quite a bit more, $47,445. Then we get to this one, the 3.3 Turbo S. Base price there is $56,450. Now this is where we get to the confusing part. You see, each one of the propulsion systems is on offer in 3 different flavors. Like for example, the basic 280 horsepower version, there is the Select, the Preferred, and a Preferred Plus. Basically, good, better, best. Then in this one, there's the Premium and the Premium Plus. Now that brings us to an obvious question. What's different about the Premium Plus? Well, we talked about some of the bits already. These 7-passenger seating, the panoramic sunroof, the heated and cooled seats, the heated steering wheel, but there are 3 other bits that round it out. There is the Nappa leather, the Bose stereo, and the larger 21-inch wheels. Now, a word about the Nappa leather. Notice it's finished in a saddle, leather, and suede. I would argue far better than the light gray off-white we saw in the car in the tech review. Now that brings us to another obvious question. How much is all this fanciness? Well, the base price of this one, the Premium Plus, $59,950, which brings us to the only factory option fitted to this car, and it's the most obvious. It is that color, Artisan Red, which I would argue is even more stunning than Soul Red Crystal, and a bargain at $595. Now, I'd love to tell you the destination handling, but no one told me what it is, so we'll have to discuss it in the coming plug-in hybrid episode, which brings us to a total retail price of $60,545. So there is another fascinating aspect at work here, and that is the color and trim and the tactile feel, but not in the usual way that you and I discuss. Like for example, you and I have driven the recent Telluride, Palisade, and other vehicles that are trying to hit this exact same target, meaning out-German the Germans. And the design in the Hyundai is good, the design in the Telluride is good, but the execution, it's not to where it needs to be. It's okay, but it's not there. This, once again, they have hit the bullseye. All of like the details they put into the vehicle, like the 2-tone steering wheel, the stitching on it works because it's seamless. And the stitching on the console between the captain's chairs, even that detail is trying to hit the target. Put another way, all of this comes together. It's not just the driving dynamics or the way the thing delivers power. It's absolutely all the details combined with the way it drives. So what have we learned today? This, a complete home run in many areas. The way it drives, the new power plant, and then shockingly, the pricing. I asked for something pretty aggressive and they delivered. Granted, in a way that I didn't expect, but still unusually good, and I would argue we would have to drive both the plug-in as well as that lower horsepower version to understand that, which brings us to the wish list. And here, I want to put a pin in it. I never do this, but let's punt this down the road to those 2 episodes. You see, no matter how good this is, pricing is a bigger deal here than with its German targets because, let's be honest, people buy on brand. Now, the CX-9 kind of bucked that trend when it first came out. It was like $32,000 to start, and the fancy one was like $45,000. But when the car got into the market, people bought the fancy one and were trading in Audi Q7s. But there was a bigger delta there between a CX-9 and a Q7. This one is about the same price for a basic one. Granted, this one has more stuff in it, but people don't get into pedantic details. All they think about is brand. But I am just one man, and this is the point of the episode that I turn around to you guys to opine in the comments below, or via our social media, MotoManTV all in word, MotoManTV all in word, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. And with that, if you got value out of this episode, I would greatly appreciate you sharing all of them with your friends on your socials. Until I see you in the next episode, bis später.